Okay, we are back from our lunch break. It is 2 o'clock on May 9th, 2023. We'll be continuing our Board of County Commissioners meeting. Public hearing number 3 and 4 have been withdrawn to be heard in June 9th, 6th, June 6th. So now we're going to take public hearing quasi-judicial number 1. Request by Florida Power and Light Company for a major final site plan approval for the Monarch Solar Facility Project F117-002, presented by Mr. Brian Elam. And since it's quasi-judicial, I have a series of questions I need to ask. Commissioner Smith, do you have any ex parte communication?
I do, they're filed.
Thank you. Commissioner Hetherington?
If any, they've been filed.
Thank you. Commissioner Jenkins?
If any, they've been filed.
Commissioner Hurd?
Same with me.
Thank you. And also with me, I don't believe I have any, but if I did, they've been filed. If anyone's going to offer any testimony other than an attorney, please stand to be sworn in. The whole room stood up.
Raise your right hands. Do you swear?
You're swearing in everybody. That's even the.
Except for Tyson Waters.
It's just Elise Elder, Deputy County Attorney.
Just for the Florida Power and Light one.
We're going to do this again each public hearing.
Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay, are there any return receipts notifications that are necessary?
There are none required.
Thank you. Mr. Elam?
I'm sorry, I
They
take
were
that back.
turned in at the
They were
OPA.
turned in at the LPA.
Oh, there we go, misled. Mr. Elam, do you have a copy of your work history and a copy of the agenda item? Let the record show that it's been submitted. Are there any interveners?
No interveners.
No interveners against FPL? Who would have thunk it? I don't even know who they would be. What's the other one? Who else is the other power company?
I don't know.
There's some other one. Duke?
Yeah.
Yeah, Duke. Never mind that. Blue Devils. Is that it? Please. Yes. I know we were trying not to say it out loud, so just make it all about FPL today. Guess what? You're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners.
You're welcome.
This is a request by Florida Power and Light Company for approval of a major development final site plan. The proposed development consists of construction of an unmanned 74.5 megawatt solar farm with required infrastructure on approximately 507 acres. Included with this application is a request for a certificate of public facilities reservation. Here's an aerial view of the project location. The site is located approximately 6 miles east of Lake Okeechobee on the north side of Southwest Kenner. Properties are accessed from Southwest Farm Road. The subject site has a land use designation of agricultural and a zoning district designation of A2. The surrounding properties are also designated agricultural and zoned A2. The property is bordered to the west by land owned by the applicant with a future land use of power generation, and there are no residential uses adjacent to the development site. The acreage consists of 6 contiguous parcels south of Southwest Farm Road and 1 parcel to the north, including 40 feet of the parcel abutting to the west. Site plan is outside the urban services boundary, and no water or sewer services is planned for the development. The site has approximately 18.36 acres of existing wetlands that are required to be protected. These wetlands and their buffers are shown on the final site plan. A preserve area management plan has been written and applies to the continued protection of the wetland areas and is part of this agenda item. Development Review staff has found the application to be in compliance with all the applicable regulations and comprehensive growth management plan as detailed in the staff report. This application was heard before the local planning agency on May 4th, 2023, and it was unanimously voted for approval. Staff recommends approval of the major development final site plan and preserve area management plan as detailed in the staff report for the FPL Monarch Solar Facility, and we move that the board receive and file the agenda item and its attachments, including the staff report as Exhibit 1. I move that the board approve the final site plan and preserve area management plan for the FPL Monarch Solar Facility Project. And that concludes the presentation.
Thank you, sir, very much. Questions for staff? Seeing none, applicant's turn.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission and staff. My name is Marshall Critchfield with Florida Power and Light. I'm here to talk, to turn it over to Scott and his development team to talk about Monarch Solar. There were some questions about how these names come about earlier, and it's a very lengthy process, and I'll save you the details, but for the record, I proposed the Burt Reynolds Clean Energy Solar Site, but I guess I'm the only one that saw Smoking the Bandit 2 and knows the connection to the area. So at this time, I'll just turn it over to Scott and his team, and if you have any questions, they can all be here to answer
That's a
them.
really good idea, though.
Well, Mr. Critchfield, we could base our approval on that name.
They won't go for it, unfortunately, I tried. But thank you.
No, I meant our approval could be based on that.
If the county wants to make a sign that says Burt Reynolds Solar Energy Center, I don't see what we could do about that. So, thank you, Scott.
Then you could always apply to work here. Hello, sir.
I'll do anything for approval.
Oh, there you go.
You've heard that before.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commission. My name is Scott Scoville. I'm a project director with Florida Power and Light. My business address is 700 Universe Boulevard, Juno Beach, Florida, and I am also a resident of Martin County. So it's nice to be working in my literally almost in my backyard. So thank you for seeing us tonight. Real quick, we go to the next slide. Florida Power and Light currently operates 65 solar energy centers throughout Florida in 24 counties, and Martin County has been an integral part of our success in our program. So thank you for, like I said, having us. You'll see here on the map, we did our first project here in Martin County. It's called the Sweet Bay Solar Energy Center. That was developed in 2019, went in operations in January of 2020. We currently have another one that was before you a couple months back. I've lost track of time, but Whitetail was you approved Whitetail a few months ago. We are currently talking about Monarch Solar, and then we will have another one coming before you. Staff is reviewing the application for a Fawn Energy Center, so we'll be very active here in the county for the foreseeable future. Both Monarch and Whitetail are scheduled to go to construction. Monarch probably this week, and I'm sorry, Whitetail will go to construction this week, and Monarch as soon as we receive all of our final approvals that we are seeking today. So thank you. Like I said, FPL serves approximately 83,000 customers here in the county, and in 2022 we provided over $39 million in taxes to the county as a company. So
Thank you.
next slide. With all of our solar energy centers, we believe they are compatible use of the surrounding ag land, and they are a good investment in the community. We're virtually silent, can't see us. There is a construction period, but when we're done, we're a passive investment. We'll sit there with no demands on the county for infrastructure, schools, nothing like that. So it's a good long-term investment for the county. This is just a typical picture, for those who haven't seen it, of one of our sites that has been post-construction stabilized, minimal impacts to the surrounding environment. These photos here are of our tracking systems. So you can, when we're done, the grass is back and the ground is stabilized, and we have no impact to the surrounding, the project site. Minimal impact. This is just a photo of some of the components of our site. The center there is the one that's an inverter box that takes the DC voltage and converts it to 34,500 volts. That then goes to our transformer that injects the energy into our bulk transmission system. I just like the photo in the lower left. That is one of my colleagues. He is really 6'5", and he is as tall as the panel. So you can see that once we're built with natural landscape, they're barely visible from the surrounding neighborhoods or areas. And fortunately here, there are no neighborhoods. We're in the middle of, deep in the egg sections.
Ready?
Next. This project, all of them is set, like, as Brian says, 74.5 megawatts. We have received our DEP approval back in March. We're seeking your approval today, and our construction crews are standing by and I like chomping at the bit to go. So they're ready to go. And we will have this in service by January of next year, next January 2024.
Fantastic.
Thank you for having us today. And as always, thanks, Brian, and the rest of the staff for getting us here today.
Questions for the applicant? Seeing none. Any members of the public looking to address us on this topic? Also seeing none, comes back to the board. I guess that's a no. Thanks for stopping by. Comes back to the board.
Don't
Oh, I didn't see these lights. I apologize.
have a heart attack.
Commissioner Heatherington.
Well, Commissioner Smith had his light, but I just wanted to say, and I said it the last time you were here for a different project, but you neighbor my childhood home, I think the Sweet Bay project was the first one you did in Martin County, which was literally in the back, yard, which used to be Alpata Ranch, off of 609 of my family home. And I think you satisfied every question, every concern of all the neighbors of Little Ranch Estates, and have been a very, very good neighbor. So with that, unless you wanted to make a motion, I will make a motion for
I
approval.
appreciate hearing that. That's always with what we do with the community engagement and involvement. Thank you for the feedback.
Commissioner Smith.
Second discussion, just a quick thing. Did the state or has the state ever moved forward at all on any of the construction of any of the parts that go into these things? Have we ever, from the steel manufacturing, from all your frames to the solar panels themselves, is there anything that's ever happened at the state level relative to manufacture? Because how many hundreds of thousands of these things are you building?
We've built 65 to date, and it's a global, we look for the,
But it's like 1 million panels or more than that.
we're well over 1 million panels. Each project has about 200 to 300,000 panels as a technology. We started off probably Whitetail and Sweet Bay may have had 275 to 300,000 panels each year. We're now, with the technology increases, we're down to 200 per site. So yes, we are well into the millions of panels. We look worldwide and globally to supply wherever we.
Yeah, just always thought it was too bad that there wasn't a way to capture like the steel manufacturing for all the upright supports of them, to do. Indiantown used to have a steel plant years and years and years ago. And I just thought it would have been a cool thing with as many as you are producing. I would have thought for an order as large as you would place for millions and millions of panels, somebody could have built a plant in Florida that would have produced them all. That's all.
I'm actually not sure where the steel comes from. I should probably know that, but I don't.
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Probably not. Probably Japan.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we look local first for all of
Yeah, I
our.
know. Yeah, I was just curious if that had ever matured into anything.
We did have a couple years ago had a solar manufacturer in Jacksonville that was supplying panels that started, and I guess we just grown so much, we just continue looking. There's such a demand in the country and the world now for solar.
Cool stuff. Thank you.
Did you second it? We have a motion by Commissioner Heatherington for staff's recommendation as listed here, and seconded by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously, with our thanks. Thank you so much.
It'll be ever known as Burt's
Burt Reynolds.
Park. Burt Reynolds Solar Farm. Burt Reynolds.
Burt Reynolds Clean Energy Center. Our next item is also quasi-judicial, public hearing quasi-judicial. Number 2, request for a final site plan approval for Rolling Sands Golf Course B076-003, also presented by Mr. Brian Elam. And now is when your group will get to stand up and be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Commissioner Hurd, do you have any ex parte communication?
I do, and they've been filed.
Thank you. Commissioner Jenkins?
Do, they've been filed.
Commissioner Heatherington?
I do, and they've been filed.
Commissioner Smith?
I do, and they're filed.
I as well have been filed. Mr. Elam, do you have another copy of your work history and a copy of the agenda?
I do.
Are there any requirements for notification of return receipts?
They've been turned into the LPA, I believe.
Thank you. Anyone looking to intervene?
No interveners.
Thank you very much. So at this point, we will begin the presentation with staff's presentation. Mr. Elam, you are recognized.
Thank you again.
You're welcome.
This is a request by SS Ranch LLC for approval of a, excuse me, major development final site plan. The proposed development consists of constructing a private 18-hole golf course with accessory uses and associated infrastructure on 12 parcels that are approximately 239.1 acres. The project site is located between the St. Lucie Canal and Southwest Kenner Highway, approximately 6.5 miles west of Interstate 95 in Indiantown. The site plan includes one 20-acre residential lot. Included is a waiver request for the proposed on-site sewage treatment and disposal system and a request for a certificate of public facilities reservation. Future land use on the site is agricultural. The zoning district is A2, agricultural district. As mentioned, the site totals approximately 239 acres, includes one private golf course, driving range, clubhouse, pro shop, maintenance facility, comfort stations, range building, 2 cottages, and one 20-acre tract reconfigured as a residential lot. The site is located in lots 7 through 17 of the Box Ranch Groves plat. And the site proposes 96% open space and is devoid of native habitat and wetlands. This is the site located between Okeechobee Waterway and Southwest Kenner Highway. To the east and west of the site are residential agricultural uses, and to the south, land uses are currently agricultural. This is an aerial of the site. A rolling hill vegetative berm along Kenner Highway is proposed. The proposed stormwater management uses dry detention systems throughout the golf course. The proposed water source for irrigation is an existing consumptive use permit from the South Florida Water Management to draw from the canal. A well is proposed to serve the fire protection needs of the site, and potable wells for water service meeting the Florida Department of Environmental Protection standards are proposed for the basic potable water. This is a site plan. The project proposes 2 access points along Kenner Highway, with the main entrance serving the clubhouse and further west for the maintenance facility. This sheet is site plan, shows the maintenance facility entrance and the residential lot. Close-up of the clubhouse, pro shop, cottages, and helicopter pad. Another close-up of the clubhouse and the maintenance facility. The proposed development lies outside the urban services district, so septic tanks and drain fields are proposed for the wastewater service. Comp Plan Policy 10.2A.8.1 sets the limit for on-site sewage treatment and disposal systems. Total site build-out flow to 2,000 gallons per day. The applicant has submitted a waiver with justification in accordance with Comp Plan policies, requesting the board waive the 2,000 gallon per day limitation and approve the proposed 4,230 gallon per day flow. Growth management staff has reviewed the location of all septic drain fields in relation to applicable setback requirements from water bodies, surface waters, and well fields, and determined the placement exceeds the requirements. The waiver application has written concurrence from the Florida Department of Health for the proposed 4,230 gallon per day flow. Development review staff has found the application in compliance with our comp plan, and staff recommends approval for the major site plan application and requested waiver for the on-site sewage disposal system. This application was heard before the local planning agency on April 6th, and the LPA voted 4-1 in favor of approving the final site plan and the requested waiver. So staff recommends approval of this site plan and the waiver. We move that the board receive and file the agenda item and its attachments, including the staff report as Exhibit 1. I move that the board approve the final site plan for the Rolling Sands Golf Course project with requested waiver for the on-site sewage disposal system. That concludes the presentation.
Mr. Elam, thank you very much. Let's jump right into it with Commissioner Hurd.
Just a couple things to start us out. The application must contain a concise statement by the applicant that justifies a waiver of the 2,000 gallon per day flow limitation. Where is that in the packet?
That was, here.
And also, the LPA heard this, there was a recommendation. Where's the LPA summary and recommendation in our packet?
I didn't place the summary in.
Why not? Why bother having a committee, a recommending committee, if you're not going to include the summary and the recommendation as part of our packet?
If I may, Commissioner Elise Elder, Deputy County Attorney, the LPA meeting was just last week, which was outside the requirements for the agenda packet. So our agenda packet is due well before these board meetings. And with the LPA meeting last Thursday and this appearing before the LPA last Thursday, today's the day, no?
Actually, this meeting was postponed a month, but it hasn't been our practice to put any additional information from the LPA into the packet.
We used to get a summary
We do.
with the recommendation.
Okay, that, again,
State your name for the record, please.
sorry, Pete Walden, Deputy Growth Management Director. It hasn't been our practice of the last few years to put any summary from the LPA into the packet. We forward their recommendation and their vote. So we can do that in the future if the board so desires.
Certainly is of value to me.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Paul Schilling, Growth Management Director. To answer your question, Commissioner, I'm not aware of a summary. However, over the years, there were an attachment of the minutes of the meeting, which, due to the time frame involved here, we struggle at times to get those minutes done, especially if they're back-to-back, in other words, last week or the week before. It generally takes us a couple weeks to get those minutes turned around. However, the recommendation was for approval. There was some discussion on the stormwater that I believe the applicant took as far as that discussion, and some discussion as far as the irrigation, I believe. But the applicant's more than capable to answer those questions. But the recommendation was for approval, and that was.
It's not a unanimous decision. So I was curious to find out from the minutes what the discussion was about. It
Understood.
helps to inform my decision.
Plus, we don't get the minutes approved by the LPA until their next meeting, so that makes it even more problematic to forward those in a timely manner.
So there can be a couple month lead time to actually approve minutes.
Well, then that should be a consideration for timing, to make sure that we get all the information that we need in order to make an informed decision. Thank you.
Is that it?
For right now, it is.
Thank you. Any other questions from my colleagues for staff? Seeing none, this is the applicant's opportunity to present. Good afternoon, sir, and welcome. Please state your name for the record.
For the record, Michael Houston with HCA Design Studio. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, thank you.
You are recognized.
Thank you. So we're here today. First off, I wanted to thank staff for working with us and doing a very good project review of the project and allowing us to move forward into today's agenda. This project is As we've just talked about, staff recommended approval, as well as the LPA and the 401 vote. Today with us, our team, our client here, Chris Shimway, is here, whose vision was for this project, and this is a very unique golf course. My personal experiences, I did the Hammock Creek course, I helped create the Martin County course that just recently opened. I worked at the Loxahatchee Club. I've worked on courses all over the state. This is going to be one of the most unique courses that Martin County has seen. And the reason that it is because he selected this property and he selected a golf course architect who's probably one of the most renowned golf course architects, not just in the country, but in the world, Tom Doak. And the two of them are working together on quite a vision. But before I do that, let me just introduce our team. Tyson Waters is here, our attorney. You all know Tyson.
one is
Donald
he?
Barnes, project.
Raise your hand.
Raise your hand. Ed is
Wanted to make sure clear.
Yeah. Donald Barnes is 30 years of development experience, is the project manager with the team. Rick Reach, who's here. Rick has worked for the county before as a consulting engineer for many, many projects, and both his survey and his engineering experience were invaluable on this. Jonathan Ricketts, who's here. Jonathan actually understands this drainage along with Rick and the discussion that we just started to have about stormwater in an amazing way, and we'll touch on that. We're going to be brief because we know you've had a long day already. Susan O'Rourke is our traffic engineer.
Go Navy.
Go Navy, yeah, yeah. LSU. Environmental consultant is Drew Gatewood, and Todd Troxel from my office has worked on this. So Tom Doak is the golf course architect. Tom is out of Michigan. He has written books on golf course architecture. I'm very aware of him because he's a landscape architect. He came out of a great program, except for it wasn't LSU. His courses include Pinehurst. He's doing the Pinehurst course number 10 right now. If you, Ed, your family knows golf very well, the Bandon Dunes community in Oregon, he did Pacific Dunes there, and he did Stream Song, which is over toward Tampa, and it's an amazing redevelopment of sand mine pits. So we've got a great team, and Chris helped put that together. So left side, we'll get to the site. So the site is about 6.5 miles, Brian had in a staff report, about 6.5 miles west of I-95. The way that I look at it is that it's right across the street from Cliff Berg's Sunlight Ranch. And this is Cliff Berg's property. It was acquired by Mr. Shimway. And as you probably know, Cliff had an objection at the BCC meeting because of design of the canal that bisects this site, goes into his property, goes into the Box Ranch. In the preceding few weeks, which Paul and Pete both talked about, we straightened that back up again, and I think Cliff has given you a letter of no objection, which is great. Here's the property. One of the things that's so unique about it is, like a lot of ag, is it used to have citrus, I think. It has cattle. Cliff had cattle out there for a long time. And there are no wetlands, and there are no uplands. There are some native trees, and we'll talk about those a little bit. 240 acres, slightly less. And you can see that this property has a very substantial amount of frontage along the canal, along St. Lucie Canal and the Okeechobee Waterway, 6,900 square lineal feet to be exact. And along State Road 76, 5,866 feet. So it's got over a mile of frontage on both the canal and along 76, which is a unique attribute for creating a golf course. The lack of wetlands is a significant issue. There are 428 existing native trees on site, and we'll touch base on those. And we're proposing to preserve 393 of those. A good chunk of those, 92, a good chunk of those are along 76. So here are the 11 lots that make up the property. The average lot pays $90 a year because of the ag exemption. When those 11 lots become a golf course, that number will change substantially. Each lot, as you all know, because this is a project or a discussion that's come up for many years, each one of these is allowed 2,000 gallons for a total of 22,000. We're asking for less than 5,000. That is the request that we're asking for, that waiver, which Brian has in his staff report. and that Health Department has waiver has been received. So here's the it's a master plan, but because there's no housing on it, it really is a golf course plan. So it does have a 10,000 square foot clubhouse, and I don't know, can you see that? Can you see where I'm pointing? Yes. Is that showing up? So 10,000 square foot clubhouse. These are the two access points that Brian mentioned. One is to the club, the most easterly portion of the community or of the golf course. And the theme of this project, this golf course, is that you won't know that it's there. This is going to be kind of like Seminole or kind of like MacArthur, where you really don't know MacArthur is back there because they got a little tiny sign, and if you don't know to turn in, you go right on by it.
You're not even supposed to mention it. I'm just saying.
I'm not saying where it is. It could be in another county, but it's not. It's right across. Oh, never mind. The buffer along there is a lot of it existing pines, and we're keeping most of those. The golf course will have some substantial berms because the course will be designed with a lot of rolling topography on it, and that's part of the reason why this course was, or this property was selected. So you really won't see the golf course. The golf course entrances will be screened, and the maintenance area, which is over here, will also be screened. And I'll show you in a minute kind of the concept of keeping most of the trees along that area. The other group of trees is up here along the canal, up in the northeast corner, and that's the area where we have the practice range and practice facility. You'll be able to come into the clubhouse, park here, and go out and use the range as well as some practice holes that will probably be there for chipping and putting. And then the 18 holes begins from the clubhouse, and as you all know, goes out and then returns back. And you can see one of the other things that's a characteristic of the site is how deep it is. It's about 1,800 feet deep. So one question that was asked at the LPA meeting was, isn't it kind of narrow? And it's not because it's narrow, it's because the piece is so big. As you all know, a typical golf course is about 120 acres. This is 240 acres. Now, the western end of it does have one residential single family, as Brian mentioned, and that is shown in this graphic down here. There's only one pond on the whole project. That's here. This is an irrigation pond, and that will be part of the design.
Mr. Houston, this morning there was a public comment about, I guess, a neighbor, an agricultural neighbor, that wanted to know about the buffer. What do you want to say about the buffer?
We fully expect that and that would be right there, Commissioner, that they will not be able to see any part of the golf course and probably won't even be able to see the single-family house. That is a 20-acre property there. I'm guessing, and Mr. Shumway, who probably will have a home there, will be closer to the golf course, so there may be a 500-foot separation. So,
Thank you.
comfortable that should be very easily buffered. So the site is 96% open space. Commissioner Purd, I know you know the code very well. Ag allows 50%, requires 50% open space. So this site, if it was developed at ag to its fullest, would be 9 million square feet of coverage. We are proposing about 40,000. So 50% versus 4%. That's the amount of coverage. This property will stay green generationally. This will end up being an amazing golf course that a lot of us may not get a chance to play it, but it will be on the golf course map for sure. Part of the Chris's and Mr. Tom Doak's theme is that a lot of native grasses, shrubs will be handled. And I'm not saying it's a Scottish theme, but it'll have a much more natural feel. One of the really neat things about this, and we learned this about on another property, is that when the irrigation for the golf course is removed from the St. Lucie Canal, the water that is removed has a higher phosphorus and nitrogen content than the water when it goes back in. Some of it will go into the aquifer, some of it will go back into the St. Lucie Canal, but it is clear, it is definitely clear. And if you have any questions on that, we have our great experts with Rick and
Let me stop you there then. We are having an agenda item in the future. We've had some folks that have spoken, I personally believe, inaccurately, that golf courses will have an adverse effect on the environment. maybe it is a good opportunity to hear from your experts to discuss best management practices and how that's not the case anymore. I think a lot of people might think about old school golf courses and the practices of fertilization and herbicides, but it's not that way. And so maybe it's a good opportunity to take a moment to explain that, especially considering your proximity to the St. Lucie.
That's fantastic. Rick or Patrick, or Don?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just recall one of the discussion items for the local planning agency was errant golf balls, so errant golf shots, and how those would be minimized. And there was quite a lively exchange on that. So maybe the applicant can talk about that a little bit as to the play and targets and things.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got a detail, Paul, that we'll show you after Jonathan walks through that key issue, and you'll see that we are very far from 76. Part, again, of answering the question about creating a buffer along 76.
So
Jonathan?
we'll do the environmental portion, then we'll talk about hooking and slicing.
Yes, ma'am.
Most of those people don't hook and slice, do they?
No.
Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Ricketts. I'm a registered engineer here in Florida, and I have the privilege of working on this project. Thanks for your time today. I'll just give you a quick overview of the project. Project meets Martin County requirements for 1-inch runoff. So we know that 60% of all rainfall is 1 inch or less. Theory being behind that the majority of rainfall is captured, then the majority of pollutants are captured. The project meets that criteria. Second object that we get to at a higher level is a tool we call BMP Trains. And BMP stands for Best Management Practices. And of course, the term trains means that we line up those filtration devices in series or in sequence so that we get cleaner and cleaner water as the project goes through its system. Project meets those boundaries. And the interesting thing about BMP Trains is that where our county criteria looks at a total volume, BMP Trains looks further and looks to the specific land use. So we get to look at what nutrients may be generated by different land uses and then how they're most reasonably treated. And the project passes on that point. But the really interesting thing, so we've met the county criteria, we've met the state criteria, but Mr. Shumway is also interested in even going further. So the use of water from the C44 will provide, in addition to meeting all state quality and quantity requirements, will provide an extra layer of nutrient removal. So in that case, this project is fairly unique in that not only does it exceed the minimum requirements, but has mechanisms in place to go far beyond that. Second thing I would point out is, and I'll pull out the reference here. Florida Department of Environmental Protection has a best management practices specifically for golf courses. And this was done in conjunction with the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America. Mr. Shumway is employing a Rutgers college graduate who is versed in agronomy. He is a member of this organization. He and I have discussed what his anticipated fertilization needs are for this project. They are well within the guidelines of the DEP standards for best management practices. So we look at how the system will be operated. We're comfortable that that will meet and exceed the standards. We look at our county requirements. We're comfortable that the county requirements have been met and exceeded. And we look at the state requirements, and we're comfortable with those requirements have been met. And with the addition of the water being withdrawn from the C44, we have that as an extra bonus.
Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, given that those are recommendations, they're voluntary, how are they going to be enforced?
Well, those records are voluntary, but there will be sampling done. The golf course superintendent is very cognizant of every time he has to place anything on the golf course, there's a cost associated with that. And so they will do nutrient assays. They will actually take samples of the grass materials that they are targeting for nutrient enrichment. And so before they make that application, they will test and verify what those are.
So it's going to be self-monitoring?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smith.
So I think when Ed, and I missed the very first few seconds, I apologize, but I think when Ed asked the question, and I think an interesting thing that should be pulled together at some point in time with both your project and others that both have been built recently and are being proposed to be built. Did you say, or did you share with the board how many gallons a day the course will be extracting out of the C-44?
Yes, the existing permit now is a little over 700,000 gallons per day. That's the existing water use permit for the ag.
So what would be interesting is your drawdown, if you will, out of the C-44, the others drawing down out of the C-44, and returning cleaner water if there is any to be returned than what was sucked out of the C-44. The cumulative number of those projects, I'm not asking you to do, I'm just the other folks in the room that are working on these things, thinking about it. They started discharging out of the C-44 a couple months ago. And I don't know how many billions of gallons a day that they're doing. But there was a time in the county when we were really having explosive algae outbreaks, and there was the cry, from rightfully so, from everybody, we didn't want another drop coming out of the canal, period. And so I always find that the debate interesting, or the discussion interesting, about whether or not this should happen or shouldn't happen, relative if you just purely wanted to look at it for saying, look, if we don't want another drop of fresh water coming out of the lake, yet we have projects that are sucking X amount of million gallons a month or a day or a week out of the canal that would otherwise go to tide, and we're putting back, you're putting back, someone's putting back cleaner water than what we took out, and we have Calkins Water Farm on the north side of the canal that can take, I forget how many acre feet it can take, but it's just an interesting equation that I see these things as incredible opportunities to do a lot of cleanup of water that we would otherwise have to spend a lot of money ourselves to do, that we're not doing, that the private sector is doing. And sure, there's a golf course, I appreciate that, but the private sector is spending millions to build these facilities, to take water out of the canal that we would otherwise not want, period, using it for the benefit of the course, but also treating it in such a way that you're putting it back cleaner than it came out. So I just think for all the experts in the room, when you're talking to each other and you're working on each other's projects, or however all that happens, it would be great to cumulatively take all of that analysis someday and say, look, there's 5 projects, these 5 projects are taking 6 million gallons a day out of the canal, and that equates to 5%, 3% of the discharges that occur over the course of a month, whatever those numbers may look like. I think that would help people understand somehow what the benefit is, at least just on that single water issue, what that benefit is to our community and to the river as a whole. But thank you for your other info.
Thank you very much. You're not the golf ball expert, are you?
Definitely not.
Okay. Mr. Houston, there was a question about errant golf balls.
I'm going to jump to that one, then I'll come back to this one in a second. This is our summary. There it is. So when you do a golf course, you lay out circles, and essentially these circles are protection zones. Some cases or some courses that use very small ones, and that's when people's houses get hit. 200 foot at the drive, at the tee area. You can see where the drive is. This is about a 250-yard drive, 350 feet wide. We're about 160, 180 feet from 76, and that was already a huge area. And then the next shot, this is a par 5, is also 300 feet. So these are used by all the golf course architects, and we have a lot of room between us and there. So let me just go back real quick. And Jonathan, thank you for that. One of the projects that we've talked to you about in years past had an allocation out of the canal of 3 billion gallons a year, and the district said to them, this is a farm, and they said, we really like you to look at that because we think you're taking too much water out. So they ended up doing a Kilroy monitor at both ends of the intake and the outtake, and the outfall was so much cleaner, they said, keep the 3 billion gallons and use as much as you can. So golf courses are allowed under the current zoning district, as you know. The proposed development exceeds the open space by 46%, 50,000 square feet of a clubhouse, by the way, a maintenance, 2 little cottages, 1,000 square feet, a little halfway house out on the course. Ad valorem taxes will go up substantially with very little impact on public facilities. This is not a residential community. It has just the one house at the far end, which is a 20-acre lot. The irrigation wells will not be used. It'll be help on the aquifer recharge for the golf course. Proposed private golf course will generate minimal traffic, and staff and LPA found the application to be applicable and meets or exceeds all the standards. That is all for us. If you guys have any questions, we appreciate your time and look forward to a positive vote.
My little box is lighting up like a switchboard. We're going to start with Commissioner Hetherington.
You mentioned a lot of the native plants that you're going to leave along Canner Highway, and I know we met with the applicant, and I expressed that, to me, it's important that Canner Highway maintain that cultural, agricultural heritage look, even though there's a golf course, and of course, you relayed that they really don't want you to know the golf course. So, and you mentioned a new berm, and the native trees, but along the berm, the plantings, are they going to be something that's more native looking and compatible to, and is that called out in the landscape plan somewhere?
Yeah, the graphic I have here, which was the detail on the shots, that shows you about the density of the trees. Those are all native trees. There might be a few flowering trees in there, Commissioner, but mostly this is a native look. The shrubs will be native, the grasses will be native. The berm itself will be probably planted in native grasses, so very much a native feel.
Good. That to me, that's very important. I think keeping that Canner Highway a rural-looking highway. And then I just had a quick question on your site plan rendering, and I'm curious there's a little pier. What are those other bump-out sections?
Those are areas that Cliff excavated out of the canal.
Oh, they're existing.
Yeah, they exist. And they're just like little docking areas, but they'll also make some interesting golf shots in there.
Okay, just curious what they were.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I've never asked him what they were.
Done. Thanks.
Commissioner Hurt.
Yeah, Chapter 4 of the comprehensive plan is the future land use element, and when talking about ag, there are lots of restrictions about retaining ag, about viable ag, and how important it is to us. Its development options shall be restricted to low-intensity uses, including agricultural lands not exceeding 1 unit per 20 acres. It talks about the value of preserving agriculture for production, and it talks about the minimum requirement for 20 gross acres per house. And I look on your site plan, and it looks like the cottages that you're proposed are very close together. In other words, nowhere near 20 units. I'm sorry, 20 acres.
Well, as you know, in the ag district, you can build a primary house, and then you can build secondary barns, you can build secondary houses. As long as it doesn't exceed 50% of the primary house, you can put a second house on there. I don't know if that falls in the cottage area, but
Cottages are also proposed to be 4 bedrooms?
1,000 square feet each, they're pretty small.
And someplace else in your narrative, it said 4 bedrooms. I don't think you're going to have 1,000 square foot bedroom houses with 4 bedrooms.
Oh, that's the size of it.
Commissioner Paul Schilling, Growth Management Director for the record. So the cottages are ancillary to the golf course use. They are not to be conveyed. They're not lots of record. They're not being platted. They are simply residential.
And where is that language?
Guest houses are permitted in the A2 and have been since 1967.
It's under the specific uses in the LDRs for the golf course cottages.
In what chapter?
Not,
I can
it's
look it
not in the chapter 4. You're
LDRs, tell me what chapter, tell me where to find it.
3 point, hold on 1 second. Yeah.
All the exceptions that are created for golf courses, according to you, tell me where those exceptions exist in the LDRs or where they exist in the comprehensive
It's
plan.
section 3.73 under golf course for specific uses. It lists all the accessory uses for golf courses, which cottages are included in that.
What else is included?
I'll have to read the whole thing.
Pro shop.
Yep, so accessory uses may include but are not limited to pro shops, administrative offices, food and beverage service, maintenance and utility facilities, storage areas, restrooms, driving ranges, and golf cottages.
When I looked up the LDRs for the zoning districts, I found exceptions. I found that in this land use, golf driving ranges are not permitted. Limited retail sales and services are not permitted. Parking lots are not permitted. Restaurants are not permitted.
Yes, a golf range like Golf World had would not be permitted. That's considered an outdoor amusement. This is a private golf course. Any golf courses with a driving range is.
That distinction wasn't made in the zoning districts.
It is made in the LDRs.
It's, but it's not. I looked it up, and those uses are not permitted in this future land use.
What golf course is and the.
Golf courses are, I'm not arguing with that, but those other uses clearly are not permitted uses.
As standalone
Accessory
uses.
uses that Pete just went through are accessory. These are not commercially opened, and all the uses you're suggesting are commercial uses.
Speak into the mic, Mr. Houston.
Okay, so
It's a private club.
in your justification for the waiver for the 2,000 gallons per day, it says restricting the maximum flow rate of 2,000 gallons per day for the golf course would reduce the maximum number of golf course members to only 72 members. This restriction will make the golf course financially unfeasible and in effect prohibit a use that would otherwise be permitted. So applying the waiver provision to the property will allow reasonable use of the property as a private golf course. When this was broached to me, I was told that it was going to be a private use for family members and friends. And now it's in order to be financially feasible, it has to have more than 72 members. There are 79 parking spots. There are 6 drain fields. I mean, how does that have any relation to agriculture? How does that protect agriculture? How does that have any relation to agriculture? Those uses are extremely urban, extremely incompatible with agriculture.
Well, as you know, Commissioner, the 79 number is based on 2,000 gallons. This property has 11 lots, which would be 22,000. You could conceivably start moving your bathrooms around, but it's in one place. And it's not a big number of people. That number of parking spaces is very low.
72 memberships, I assume those are family memberships. That's a lot of people. That's potentially, hundreds of people. How is that at all compatible with agriculture, which is a requirement?
As an allowed use, it is compatible.
A golf course isn't allowed use. All these other things that are enhancements in order to make it profitable are not.
Well, no, to not make it profitable, make it function.
It says in your own justification, prepared by Creech Engineering, that it's the reason that you needed to have the waiver was to make it financially feasible.
Yeah, so the words, whether or not, it's to make the golf course function for a regular golf course. So 79 members, it's a very, very low number. Twice that is a very low number, quite frankly. And we're only asking for 25 to 42. We're not even doubling it. And as you know, Commissioner, there are many ag uses that have much greater septic impacts than this. This is a very minor impact.
But it's not. It's an enormous impact. There are cottages proposed, there's 6 drain fields proposed, there's an 11,000 square foot golf clubhouse proposed, there's a pro shop proposed, there's a maintenance building proposed, there's a driving range, which is also not a permitted use, that's proposed, there's a helipad. You know, those are, you know, maybe those things are compatible and allowed uses inside the urban service boundary, but they are not on ag.
I understand.
Anything else?
That's it for right now.
Commissioner Smith?
I don't have any other questions. If there's public comment, I'll move approval.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. There are a lot of topics that each of us are pretty familiar with. Landscaping experts, all sorts of experts, you know, that at least have a history or life experience. This one's mine. Father was a professional golfer, grew up on a golf course. My grandfather was a greenskeeper. 72 members on a very large acreage, twice what most golf courses would be, is a minuscule number of members. Some clubs have 500 members. We've all driven past this piece of property, not much going on in between Canner and the canal. I personally think that golf courses is an excellent use to transfer from sort of fallow ag or very, very low capacity output ag. The next best thing you could potentially do is golf, because as Mr. Houston said, you go from $90 in tax base per 20-acre parcel to a multiplier. We don't know specifically, but a multiplier much higher than that. The goal of most of us, and then definitely of a majority or a good portion of our public, is to protect green spaces. This could have been purchased by a consortium of people that are raising money and taken off the tax rolls and put into some kind of conservation, never to be used again, or it can stay on the tax rolls. We've heard from an expert, whom none of us are hopefully going to disagree with his credentials, that the water coming out of the canal will either stay on the property or leave the property being cleaner than when it got there. That sounds like a positive. A 10,000 square foot clubhouse, 72 parking spaces, a driving range, which is 100% necessary and appropriate for a golf course. Golf course, driving range. It's just, if you know golf, that's exactly the way it is. Now, it's not a miniature golf course with a driving range like 76 Golf World was. That's more of an arcade. This is 100% an appropriate use of a golf course. Now, we can get into one person's opinion of what the code looks like and says versus someone else's opinion of what the code is defined by. I like the concept, and in the last several years, we've done well to sort of be collegial up here and you know, make our differences of opinions known at a very reasonable and fair level. But to beat this project up concerns me simply because here is a gentleman and a company that has decided to invest in Martin County in a piece of property that was basically had no real, you know, grand future plans. They've done everything they can to buffer it from people even seeing it. It's not houses. A 1,000-foot cottage, even though there's 2 of them, is a blip on, is a drop of water in the ocean compared to what this potentially could have been. And I just think it's a good project, and I'm concerned. You know, I get it. We all have an opinion, but I don't think it's as as damaging and as catastrophic as it might have been painted here. And I'm fearful that folks might be like, well, what are we even doing? There's so many counties that would welcome us. There's so many pieces of property that are beautiful in Florida that would welcome us. I'm nervous that we send a message from the board that's like, don't come here. And if, and there are certain projects, I'll be honest, that glad to say don't come here. This is not one. They've checked every box. There was some concern at the previous time it was on the agenda with some longtime residents, and you took a couple of weeks and solved them. And the gentleman that had the most concern, who's a pillar of our community, Mr. Berg, he wrote us and said, we worked it out, which is exactly what we would want you to do so that we don't have to work it out. We've had professionals that are, based here and others from outside the community that are saying, it works, it works, it works. I do believe it works. Now, I appreciate and value our differences of perspective. But in this particular case, this is, other than keeping it in booming ag, which is also difficult to do, and then there would also be the concern of ag potentially harming the environment and potentially using practices that are not sustainable for our water quality. And they wouldn't necessarily take in the same amount of water because you can't overwater vegetables and crops. But the golf course is thirsty, and there's a tremendous water supply right next to it that the more water we can draw out of it, the better. So if I wasn't the chair, I would second Commissioner Smith's motion. I don't think it requires me to pass the gavel to do that, but I'm... I think Stacy did it. You were a second already? Thank you so much. I was already focusing on what I was about to say. This is a good project, and I'm thankful, at least personally, thankful to Mr. Shumway and his group. And, to make it can't be a family golf course. There are some individuals that have that level of money that they could have their own personal family golf course, but 72 potential memberships is nearly about as private as you could have. And for us to be critical of the fact that they are thinking about a business plan that would make this financially feasible and sustainable is just good business. Because the last thing we would need this to do is be built and then go belly up. None of us want that. And Mr. Shumway obviously didn't get as successful as he is by investing millions, tens of millions of dollars. We didn't talk about how many people will be employed here. We didn't talk about the additional economic impact of heads and beds and restaurants and gasoline and all the other benefits that this single facility will have. So if you couldn't tell, I'm a huge supporter of this project. Commissioner Hurd, you have the final word.
Thank you. Yeah, this project does not comply with the comprehensive plan policies, and it does not comply with some of the uses that are it's in violation of the zoning district allowed uses permits. That's why I oppose it. If it doesn't comply with our laws and it doesn't comply with our LDRs, then we shouldn't, we can't allow it.
Commissioner Smith.
I know you said that was the last word. I'm just curious. Paul, as Growth Management Director, does it comply with the comprehensive plan and the LDRs and all the rules of Martin County?
Yes, it does, or we wouldn't be here today.
I understand. I just wanted to hear you say that as our comprehensive plan
Growth Management Director.
Growth Management Director. Thank you.
Thank you.
That being said, we have a motion by Commissioner Smith for staff's recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Heatherington. All those in favor?
Excuse me, Commissioner Campy, we have to ask for public comment.
I thought we did. Any public comment? I apologize. I was going to, but I figured I was beat, just dragging it out. Is there any member of the public that would look to address us on this topic? Seeing none. We have a motion by Commissioner Smith for staff's recommendation of approval, seconded by Commissioner Heatherington. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
Opposed?
The motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Hurd dissenting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Let's take a 10-minute break, please. Thank you. Okay, we are back from our mid-afternoon closed captioning break. It is May 9th, 2023. We're going to take our next agenda item, which is departmental quasi-judicial number 1. Request plat approval for the West Jensen PUD Phase 1B parcels 6.0, 6.4 through 6.8 W038-099. It'll be presented this afternoon by Elizabeth Noggle. Ms. Noggle, let me ask some questions and then we'll have you begin. Commissioner Hurd, do you have any ex parte communication?
If I have any, they've been filed.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith, do you have any ex parte communication?
Same if I have them, they're filed.
Thank you. Commissioner Jenkins, do you have any ex parte communication?
If I have them, they've been filed.
Commissioner Heatherington?
If any of them been filed.
I don't have any, and so I would have filed that I had none. If there is anyone that's going to offer up any testimony, please stand to be sworn in.
Raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
So help you God. Okay, do you have a copy of your work history and a copy of the agenda item?
I do. Thank you.
Are there any return receipts that are necessary?
No notice is required.
That's correct, no notice.
And will there be anybody intervening?
No interveners.
Okay, with that, I think we have checked all the boxes. Ms. Noggle, you are recognized.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. As stated, this is the plat for West Jensen PUD Phase 1B, parcels 6.0, 6.4 to 6.8. I'm Elizabeth Noggle, Principal Planner. The revised infrastructure final site plan for West Jensen parcel 6.0, 6.5 to 6.8, and the residential final site plan for parcel 6.4 was approved on November 22nd, 2022 through the 14th Amendment to the PUD. I did mistype. 14th Amendment is accurately reflected in the agenda item. The approved revised infrastructure final site plan includes 4 commercial parcels, 6.5 to 6.8, and an access road, which is identified as parcel 6.0. The access to the commercial parcels are from this access road. The access road connects to Northwest Goldenrod Road and US Highway 1. Parcel 6.4 was approved for 105 townhomes and 64 duplex-style villas. Total of 169 units on approximately 30.31 acres, mostly undeveloped. There was an existing lake on this parcel. Access to this property is from Northwest Goldenrod Road, which is being reviewed through a separate right-of-way opening permit. There are some minor technical changes with this plat application before you today. Before you is the revised infrastructure final site plan with US Highway 1 to the west at the bottom of the sheet here, and Goldenrod Road. You can see parcel 6.5 through 6.8 on US Highway 1 are the commercial parcels and the access track that connects to those parcels. This is blurry. I have a better image on the next screen, but this is parcel 6.4 revised final site plan with some minor technical changes, which are just some bearings and distances and some acreage rounding that were cleaned up through the plat review. Zoomed in here for your viewing pleasure. And we get into the plat. There's 8 pages, so I will go through it quickly. Residential here. Residential. Commercial parcels shown. Commercial. And more residential. And with that, we move that the board receive and file the agenda item, including the staff report as Exhibit 1. Move that the board approve the West Jensen PUD parcel 6.0, 6.4 to 6.8 plat, including contract for construction of required improvements in infrastructure. And move that the board approve the minor technical changes to the parcel 6.4 final site plan. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much for that. Questions for Ms. Noggle from the commission? Hearing none. Sir, you are recognized as the applicant's representative.
Thank you. Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Morris Crady. I'm senior partner with Lucido & Associates. I have been sworn in, And I'm here on behalf of the property owners, which is Jensen Beach and Company, who's going to retain and develop, or it's under development now, the commercial tracts or parcels on US 1. And also here on behalf of Mattamy Homes, who is developing the residential project in the back of the commercial site. We're in agreement with staff's recommendation of approval. I'll be glad to answer any questions, but we support the project.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant's representative? Seeing none. Any members of the public looking to address us on this topic? There's no one here, so that would be none. It'll come back to the board for questions or action.
Mr. Chair, I will move approval, staff recommendations of approval.
Thank you very much. We have a motion by Commissioner Heatherington to accept staff's recommendation of approval. It's seconded by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Ms. Nagel, thank you so much. You with the coffin. Our next agenda item is departmental quasi-judicial number 2. It's a request revised final site plan approval for the Three Lakes project B115-007. It's got a supplemental memo. The applicant is requesting this item be continued to June 6th. And so we're going to open it and close it.
Elise Elder, Deputy County Attorney. I don't believe we need to open it and close it since they will just have to comply with any notice requirements, if any. So we just need a motion from the board to postpone or continue it to
June 6th.
to June 6th.
I'll move that we, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'll move that we continue the departmental quasi-judicial number 2 to June 6th.
Second for discussion.
Commissioner Smith.
So do we know if that legislation was passed to correct all that?
It
And when
was-
does it go into effect?
It was passed, it was not signed by the governor yet.
Okay.
So we do not have a change in that statute yet.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Heatherington, seconded by Commissioner Smith, to postpone until June 6th. Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Now you got me coughing with your crazy cough. That's Scottish cough you brought back. I have to come back with the plexiglass. Departmental quasi-judicial number 3. Request approval of a replat for a portion of the recorded South Florida Gateway Plat C lots, project number S265-013. It'll be presented by Miss Allison Rozek. Rozek. Hiring a lot of very interesting names in the growth management department. Not terribly challenging, but interesting. It's quasi-judicial again, so let me ask some questions. Commissioner Smith, do you have any ex parte communication?
I have them, they're filed.
Thank you. Commissioner Heatherington?
If any have been filed?
Thank you. Commissioner Jenkins?
Any of them been filed?
Thank you. Commissioner Hurd?
If I have any, they've been filed.
If I have any, they've been filed as well. Anyone that will be testifying, please stand to be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I hope you do. Thank you. Do you have a copy of your resume and the agenda item?
I do this time, thank you.
Thank you. 2 in a row, we got to roll it right out. Are there any return receipts that are necessary?
No, none required.
Thank you. And is anybody intervening?
No.
Thank you so much. Ms. Rozek, you are recognized to begin.
Thank you. And good afternoon, Chairman Campy.
Speak into the microphone, please.
Good afternoon, Chairman Campy and County Commissioners.
Good
Thank you
afternoon.
for your time today to hear this presentation on the agenda item before us. I'm Allison Rozek, Principal Planner in the Growth Management Department. I'm here today to talk about the replat of a portion of the South Florida Gateway Plat, specifically Lot Cs. A copy of the agenda item and my work history has been submitted for the file. The applicant for the replat is KL Waterside LLC and Canner Highway LLC, and the agent for the project is Lucido and Associates, whose representative, Morris Crady, is here today. The location of the portion of the property within the South Florida Gateway PUD subject to the replat is approximately 1 mile south of 96th Street and 2 miles west of I-95. The South Florida Gateway PUD was adopted on February 1st, 2022. The infrastructure final site plan was adopted on May 17th, 2022, and the South Florida Gateway plat was adopted on August 16th, 2022. On February 21st of this year, in 2023, the board adopted the First Amendment to the South Florida Gateway PUD. Along with the PUD amendment was an accompanying revised infrastructure final site plan. The PUD's First Amendment added 7.9 acres to Lot C of the PUD and then split the lot into Lot C1 and Lot C2. The infrastructure final site plan was revised to accommodate these changes. Plats are required to be consistent with the final site plan. Therefore, before you today is the required replat, which is consistent with the revised infrastructure final site plan. Staff found that the proposed replat is in compliance with the Comprehensive Growth Management Plan and all relevant land development regulations. According to Article 10, Development Review Procedures, a local planning agency meeting and public hearing was not required for a plat or a replat application, and therefore this file did not go before the LPA and does not come with an LPA recommendation. Staff is recommending that the board move to receive and file the agenda item and its attachments, including the staff report, as Exhibit 1. Move to approve the replat for a portion of the South Florida Gateway PUD, specifically Lot Cs. Move to approve the First Amendment to the contract for construction of required improvements. That concludes my presentation today. I want to thank you for listening, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Very well done. Questions for Ms. Rozek? Seeing none. Mr. Crady, you are representing this applicant?
Yes, again, for the record, my name is Morris Crady, senior partner with Lucido and Associates. I have been sworn in. I think Allison did a great job of giving you the background. We were here a few months ago adding on this 8-acre parcel in the back, which is actually adjacent to the county's 30-acre site. And this will allow the approval of the plat and the recordation of the plat will allow Karis Cole to actually close on the property and obtain their final site plan approval, which is pending now. So it will allow them to commence construction as soon as the plat's recorded. So we do appreciate your support and be glad to answer any questions in agreement with staff recommendation of approval.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Crady? Seeing none. Anyone from the public looking to address us on this? Also seeing none. Back to the board. Commissioner Smith.
Staff's recommendation. Second.
Thank you very much. We have a motion by Commissioner Smith to move staff's recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Jenkins. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. You did an excellent job. Mr. Crady, thank you. Our next agenda item is Departmental Number 1, Office of Management and Budget items which require board approval. There are 8 items, and they'll be presented this afternoon by Ms. Jennifer Manning. Ms. Manning, good afternoon. Welcome. You are recognized.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jennifer Manning, OMB Director. The first item on the agenda is permission to apply for the Florida Inland Navigation District Waterway Assistant Grant, and this is for the 96th Street Artificial Reef project. The grant request is for $400,000. It requires a $600,000 match, which is programmed in the Artificial Reef CIP sheet.
Excuse me one moment, Miss. Commissioner Hurd.
Do we have a CIP sheet?
For 24.
It wasn't included in the package.
Well, no, because it's programmed in the 24 CIP, because we're requesting permission to apply, so.
Okay, so it's for the county, presumably, since I don't see a CIP sheet, so I don't know what the other source, what the $400,000 is.
Okay, the $400,000, if we get the grant, it'll be for $400,000. and then it would require $600,000 to complete the project. So that $600,000 is programmed in our CIP for 2024.
Well, in the application, it says that the find is paying 60%, which is who's paying 60%?
The 400, to answer.
Jessica Garland, Coastal Program Manager. So Martin County is paying 60%, Find is paying 40%, and the CIP sheet was created in 2019 when this project was first started. It's the 96th Street Bulkhead CIP sheet.
The application says that Find is.
Paying 60.
I'm sorry, 60. I had that backwards, 60.
So you have it reversed then, yes.
Okay, so what's the source of funding for the 400,000?
An artificial reef CIP sheet, so.
It's the 96th Street CIP sheet, Bulkhead.
What's the funding?
What's the funding source?
Ad valorem.
Ad valorem. So this is for, in order to provide Martin County and Palm Beach County with waterfront access for loading and unloading barges. Why should we build a place for Palm Beach County to load and unload barges?
So they have a use agreement with us, but it's for, the majority of the work is Martin County's Palm Beach Artificial Reef Program. But we have an agreement with them for them to use it to load their barges for their Artificial Reef Program as well. There is no loading areas for any of the coastal programs for their artificial reefs between Indian River, Palm Beach, St. Lucie, or Martin. And this right-of-way is the best area.
Well, it also says the secondary use of this bulkhead will be to provide commercial contractors with an area to load and unload equipment. Why
That is
should
a-
Martin County taxpayers pay for commercial contractors to load and unload their barges?
They're not allowed to use the public parks, so this is a beneficial use to allow them in an area that is not blocking the boat ramps. So this is an area out of the way, outside of parks, and that's a beneficial use that Find is willing to pay for.
Mr. Donaldson, would you like to opine?
Yeah, so as you go up and down the waterway, the available sites for any of our, especially our small commercial vendors to get access to the water has dwindled. And so part of the grant that Find has provided is to encourage and provide funding to supplement so that you can build facilities that would be to allow the private sector to unload and load their barges. As we become more urbanized in our waterfront and we lose our commercial waterfront to more residential, these facilities are becoming more and more important. As stated, the Port of Fort Pierce, which had a site for their artificial reef, is disappearing, and Palm Beach County has simply asked permission to use ours. This is principally for Martin County. However, we have developed a relationship with Palm Beach County for them to use our site, and they assist in its maintenance of it too. So. But I think in the end, this is a really a perfect spot for these activities, and also to help our local vendors get access to the water where they otherwise wouldn't. And we have a funding partner who's willing to not only pay for it, but pay for the upgrade so that a barge can pull up to it without damaging it.
So what's our plan if Find doesn't give us $600,000?
The plan would be to continue to use the shoreline as is until we can accumulate or wait for Find to come up with another grant. I don't think there's I think if we were not to get it this year, I'm pretty sure we would get it the following year.
Know anybody?
Okay, thanks.
I'd be happy. I think Find did a really good job of presenting this to. They have a whole program that they've looked at the entire waterway and how much has disappeared. It might be a good idea if you sometime when we're to have a presentation on the lack of access to our commercial, which greatly drives up the price for our residents and getting access to their docks and other things repaired. So having these facilities actually does have a direct public benefit in lowering the cost for construction of our waterfront properties. Thank you.
Okay, the second item is the Sheriff Department, E911 Division is requesting to apply for the FY23 E911 grant for a login recorder upgrade. And if they're successful, the funding would be $516,433. The third item is also a request from the E911 Division to apply for the FY23 E911 Regional GIS Repository Grant, and the funding will provide the Florida E911 Region 6 with GIS data sharing in support for the following counties, which includes Charlotte County, Collier, Highlands, Lee, Martin, Monroe, St. Lucie, DeSoto, Glades, Hendry, and Okeechobee County. If they're successful, the grant award is $125,978.89. Item number 4 is permission to apply for the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission 2024 Artificial Construction Grant. That grant, let me move on, okay. Artificial Construction Grant for construction of 3 artificial reef in the Donaldson, is that yours, Mr. Donaldson? The Donaldson permitted area, recycled concrete, to use recycled concrete to enhance the marine habitat and provide structural complexity. The grant funding is $60,000. It requires a $30,000 match, which is programmed in the CIP. Item number 5 is permission to accept the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds agreement through FDOT, which is Florida Department of Transportation, and it's for the State Road 710 from Warfield Boulevard to Southwest Fox Brown Road, and it'll be utilized for construction and for resurfacing and construction, engineering, and inspection. The grant award is not to exceed $2,002,006. It requires a match of $803,376, which is also programmed in the road CIP. Item number 6 is permission to accept the Department of State of Historic Resources Special Category Grant. The grant award is for $115,669 to replace the roof of the House of Refuge. It requires a $115,699 match, and those funds are programmed in the Historic Facility Fixed Asset Replacement Funds program. Item number 7 is permission to accept the Urban Search and Rescue Grant. It is for $12,000, which will be used to buy equipment and supplies for the Fire Rescue Special Response Team. And it does not require a match. Item number 8 is allocation of funds for fiscal year 2023 salary adjustments. The funds are adopted and for our adopted 23 budget, and those funds are placed in reserves. We are following the Teamsters contract, which allows for $1 an hour or wage of 2% in October and 2% in April, whichever is greater. The remaining non-bargaining employees are also granted that what the contract has. And because those funds are placed in reserves, we have to get board's permission to remove those funds to allocate them respectively. And also, the IAFF salary adjustments are also placed in reserves. So we're also asking for additional reserve for contingency for overtime in the fire rescue's budget, and that is due to upstaffing as a result of increased calls. As you may remember from the last presentation with fire rescue, they explained all the increases. And that's to maintain the level of service, which also requires permission, acceptance. Okay.
Commissioner Hurd, you have a question?
Yep. What's the amount of the funds that are being requested for the Teamsters contract?
It's roughly about 2.6 when Teamsters and non-bargaining together. It's about It's around 2.6.
That's 2% or $1 an hour?
Yes.
What's the amount for IAFF?
Okay, we budgeted roughly around 3 million, and we set aside funds in reserve because of the upstaffing, because of the calls. So it's probably around 6 million.
And this is through September?
Yes, this is going to be through September. And remember, we added staff, 20 firefighters, so, that's also going to use some of that funding.
Right.
Thank you. Please continue, or is that the end?
Okay, so that is the end of my presentation, and I'll wait for the board's approval.
Thank you. Any other questions from colleagues for Ms. Manning? Commissioner Smith?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Smith to accept staff's recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Heatherington. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Manning. Next up is agenda item departmental number 2, contracts that meet the threshold for board approval, $1 million or greater. There's 2 items. It'll be presented by Mrs. Christy Brotherton. Ms. Brotherton, your name came up earlier this morning.
I heard.
You're a Palm City resident. What is your opinion of a bus stop in Palm City?
Fully support it.
Thank you very much. You are allowed to continue.
Christy Brotherton, Chief Procurement Officer. We have 2 contracts for your consideration. The first one is our old boot camp gym and Sheriff's Grounds Maintenance Building remodel and Sheriff's K-9 Operations Building construction project. This project was divided into 3 parts, and staff is recommending that the board award the contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, which is Paul Joaquin and Sons, in the amount of $2,508,299 for Section A, B, and C. Move that the board approve the revised CIP sheet for the Sheriff K-9 and Gym Facility Project that reflects the bid award and corresponding funding sources. Move that the board approve a budget transfer from law enforcement impact fee reserves, and move that the board authorize the county administrator or designee to execute all documents related to this request. Next, we have the continuing services contract for the rehabilitation of single-family homes for the State Housing Initiative Partnership, also known as SHIP program. This contract has a maximum not-to-exceed value of $7 million over a maximum not-to-exceed term of 5 years. And staff is recommending that the board award the contract to A. Thomas Construction, A2B Development, KIB Construction, and Patriot Insurance Group. And move that the board authorize the county administrator or designee to execute all documents related to this request. And that concludes this item.
Thank you. Excellent job. Questions for Ms. Brotherton? Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, I'm looking at CIP sheets, and it looks to me like, if I'm looking at the right thing, that the old boot camp, the boot camp gym and Sheriff's Ground maintenance building, that stuff, was funded at $450,000, and now the proposal is to fund it at $3.95 million?
Yes. Ms. Shawn.
That's correct. It was approved many years ago. Quite a few changes have been made to the project to basically set the stage for the future logistics building construction. So you could consider this a part of the first phase of that project, in a sense, by moving some of the uses out of that old farm facility. It was built before we even bought the property. Move some of those facilities that are operations out of that and into the new facility. As well as back when the project was first contemplated, chilled water and the chilled water plant, that connection of these 2 facilities to that chilled water plant wasn't contemplated then, it is now. So we're kind of bringing a whole bunch of little projects together to make this one larger project. That on top of, obviously, construction costs and everything else going up brought us in.
Sure, but it went from 450 to 4 million. How can it grow by 10 times? I understand there's inflation, but I don't understand that kind of inflation.
Can you state your name and title for the record, please?
My apologies. Sean Donahue, General Services Director.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Donaldson.
Commissioner, so we had quite a bit of communication with the Sheriff's Department regarding this project. As Mr. Donahue pointed out, the logistics center is a really important part of their program, and if you look in this particular item, we're actually using some funds from that along with the shooting range to actually make this happen. And I think what it is doing, it is bringing a lot of the project, which is part of the logistics center, forward. So it's really not I realize it has gone up in cost, but a big portion of that is actually bringing other elements that are required for the logistics center. So the logistics center, the magnitude of it will go down as we move forward to that. That is one of the sheriff's priorities in getting moving forward, is that logistics center. And even though we've had to move some money out of it, they're very anxious to see that project move forward. We did discuss options of delaying or doing other things or breaking this project up into pieces, and it was determined in the department, Sheriff's Department supported, let's move forward with this in its current format, which will help, again, with the overall logistics center and support their staff. So their recommendation was for us to move forward with this as it was, because we had looked at either redesigning it, wait until we get the rest of the logistics center and build it with that. But again, the preference from the sheriff and staff was all of these critical elements within this project were important, and we weren't sure that the actual cost would go down given the current pricing of construction and some of the materials. Thank you.
So what projects are being put on the back burner in order to afford this one?
So if you look at this particular item, the money comes out of the logistics center. So basically, money we were saving up for the logistics and the shooting range, with the idea that we'd be looking for fund balance and stuff. So it came out of our other sheriff's projects, which we had a lot of discussion about my recommendation of doing that. But I did ultimately get their support with the concept that we would be still trying to meet the overall goal, which is those facilities in the next 2 years. So it didn't hurt us next year, but the idea would be next year we'd be looking for ways to fund those other two projects so they could be on schedule, I think, within the 3-year period. Is that correct, Sean?
As I recall, we're also going ahead with improvements to the shooting range to the tune of about $10 million.
So
Also, there are jail pods that we've just funded, and we've all been visiting, and we're going to be asked to fund those. The sheriff needs to prioritize his projects. We can't afford to have one department.
These are prioritized, and the shooting range was purposely moved out some so that this could be funded. So this specifically was discussed with the sheriff's staff and prioritizing, and it did not impact any other county projects. It does affect future sheriff's projects with the fact that I did commit to him that we would, through fund balance and other savings, we would be looking to make that up. So the sheriff has prioritized it and is reflected in today's recommendation to issue the contract.
And what has he agreed to delay?
The shooting range.
Commissioner Smith.
So the idea or the conversation raises, I think, a good question about our long-term capital needs. We talked about some capital issues a couple weeks ago that are on our horizon. We will have and Sarah just raised the question about the new jail pod that is sorely needed. But those are all well out of our normal funding strategy. And so I assume during budget, we're going to have some kind of conversation. How do we get there? How do we start planning for multiple $million projects that are not in our normal scope? I guess what I'm asking, can we be prepared to have that conversation in budget?
Yes, we can. I mean, we know that the sheriff is going to make a presentation on the jail pod, which isn't insignificant. One of the board's priorities, which you all listed earlier this year, included a potential facility for special needs shelter and pet-friendly shelter that's independent of the schools, so that we can be more resilient in those regards. So there are some, and the sheriff has some other needs as well. So I think, along with other county operations. So I think that discussion in terms of capital is, we can be prepared to talk about it during the budget, but I think it will be an ongoing discussion for the next year.
No doubt. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Other questions for Ms. Brotherton? Seeing none.
Move approval of the recommendation.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Smith to accept staff's recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Heatherington. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Ms. Brotherton, thank you. I'll see you on the bus.
Just remember, Krista, you're just the messenger.
And a rider. She has daughters. They should ride the bus as well. Our next agenda item is Departmental Number 3. The 2023 Legislative Program Update will be presented by Ms. Sarah Powers. Ms. Powers, welcome. Good afternoon. You are recognized.
Thank you. So go ahead with a brief summary. So session ended on last Friday. There were 1,873 bills filed. 356 of those passed both chambers. And as of this afternoon, there were 32 bills that have been signed by the governor. Some budget highlights. The legislature passed a historic budget coming in at $117 billion, $46.5 billion towards the general revenue fund, and $10.9 billion in reserves. Some notable highlights include a $1.5 billion tax relief package, $574 million for Everglades restoration, $1 billion towards Florida Forever, $80 million to Visit Florida, historic funding for the ship and sail housing programs, and historic funding for a lot of grant opportunities. Some of our Martin County budget accomplishments include $3 million for the South County Line Bridge replacement. That was one of our priorities. $1 million for the fire safety training tower, which is also a priority. Some of our community partners received funding. Martin Arts, Boys and Girls Club, Council on Aging, and the Fair Association received appropriations. And the Sheriff's Office received funds with a few other sheriff's departments in the state to create a rapid DNA testing pilot program.
Can I stop you? Last year, some people got funding and then the governor pulled it back. Has this passed the governor's desk yet?
No.
So there's a possibility he could keep some of this?
Yes, we've been working with his office to send support letters and additional information so that that does not happen. But we'll continue to monitor that.
Thank you.
So the tax package, like I said, $1.5 billion in savings. Some of the short-term holidays that were established in this session were 2 back-to-school sales tax holidays, in July to August, and in January for clothes, shoes, backpacks, school supplies, computers, accessories, and software. It establishes 2 two-week disaster preparedness sales tax holidays from May 27th to June 9th and August 26th to September 8th. For disaster preparedness supplies, some examples of tax-free items are flashlights, lanterns, reusable ice, radios, tarps, all the things that you would need in an emergency pretty much. It also includes a number of items for in a case of an evacuation and cleanup as well. It expands the Freedom Week to Freedom Summer, which is 3 months, and that includes purchases of music, sporting, and cultural events, tickets to museums, single admission or season tickets to performances, state park admissions, and annual passes, and use of fitness facilities will all be tax-free. The Freedom Summer also applies to the sales of certain boating and water activity equipment, camping and fishing equipment, general outdoor supplies, and residential pool chemicals, supplies, and athletic equipment. We also have the skilled worker tools sales tax holiday that is from September 2nd to the 8th. That's for tools needed for trades, power tools, hand tools, toolboxes, things like that. There's also an appliance sales tax. That's just on the retail sale of gas, ranges and stoves, and freezers and refrigerators, water heaters, washers and dryers. There's in the tax package, it includes a local communication service tax rate pause. So the rate that was on January 1st, 2023 will not be increased for 3 years. Permanent sales tax, baby and toddler products will be sales tax free. That's like wipes, clothes, shoes, strollers, cribs, things like that. Hygiene products. Agricultural fencing was included in a permanent sales tax exemption, and fire safety devices as well.
Firearms.
Firearms safety. Some funding for natural resources and water quality accomplishments. Like I said, the Everglades restoration received a historic $574.6 million for funding. $104.9 million will go for towards Indian River Lagoon improvements, $206 million for beach renourishment programs, and $37 million for state park maintenance and repairs. And some of our highlighted legislation, so as was discussed earlier and in previous meetings, SB 102, the Live Local Act, was passed and signed by the governor earlier this year. HB 1, an education bill that expands school choice to all Florida families, also been passed and signed by the governor. HB 485, this is a bill that would remove the wartime service from the hiring requirement for veteran services staff that has been passed. SB 106, this expands access to the wildlife corridor and the shared use non-motorized or Sun Trail network. HB 109 allows Florida residents to book state park campsites a month before they open to any non-Florida residents. HB 724 establishes the Seagrass Restoration Technical Development Initiative to develop cost-effective, innovative, and environmentally sustainable technologies needed to restore coastal seagrass ecosystems. HB 49, this bill creates the Historic Cemeteries Program. The Historic Cemeteries Program provides grants to local governments for the purpose of repairing, restoring, and maintaining abandoned African-American cemeteries.
Ms. Powers, please hold
Yes.
for a moment.
Okay.
Can we stop
Commissioner
there?
Smith?
So I didn't hear about this or know about that. So it's all historic cemeteries or?
From what I understand in the bill, it's just African-American cemeteries.
And so I wonder, because do they have to be public cemeteries or are they private cemeteries?
I think it's any. I'm not 100% sure, but I can definitely.
Can you? Because we have a historic black neighborhood cemetery up in my district.
Okay.
But I think it went into, I don't know how the right word to say this is.
Private hands.
It went into private versus somewhat quasi-public ownership. Anyway, I think there's a national or statewide cemetery firm that now owns it.
Okay.
I'm just curious if it's applicable to that and if we can apply for that.
Yeah, I'll look into it for sure. I thought I had it saved here, but it's not on my tabs, but I will look into that for you for sure. Any other questions?
Please continue.
Okay. We have HB 379, which was an environmental protection bill passed by Rep. Overdorf. The biosolids bill by Rep. Tuck, that just establishes a grant program within DEP. A big one that did pass was HB 5, the elimination of Enterprise Florida. It provides that all duties, functions, records, existing contracts, administrative authority, and unexpended balances of appropriations and allocations relating to programs in EFI are transferred by a Type 2 transfer to the Department of Commerce, which is now known as, was previously known as the Department of Economic Opportunity. DEO was renamed to Department of Commerce. HB 477 passed, which was the term limits for school board, and that was signed today. It did not include county commissioners, so that was one that failed, but it was signed by the governor today that school boards will now have 8-year term limits. some bills that failed, like I said, the term limits for county commissioners. Piece of that term limits bill did not pass. We were monitoring mobility fees, that did not pass. Those two bad water bills we were concerned with at the beginning, they didn't even move, so that was good. And there was a vacation rental preemption bill that died at the last second, so we do see that coming back next year, but we're ahead of it, hopefully, and we'll have input on that when it comes about. And that was, as you probably know, just a little bit of what went on this session. Like you mentioned earlier, the governor hasn't signed the budget, and some of these bills haven't been signed yet. They just passed. So we'll keep an eye on anything that's been and will be signed by the governor in the upcoming weeks and days. Any questions?
Questions for Ms. Powers?
Nice summary.
Seeing none, thank you very much for a lot of travel back and forth. I know John Mayle was mentoring you through this process. We appreciate both of your efforts. Congratulations to your sister Meg for graduating from the Florida State University. It's not UF, but it'll do.
I'm very proud of her.
And you've come out of the starting gate to do a very good job, and we appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
I will say that I'm disappointed with Enterprise Florida. That's been an organization that I think has done remarkable work. It was very well regarded globally, and it's a big disappointment for smaller businesses that don't have the wherewithal to do those projects on their own. For Enterprise Florida to go away is terrible. Thank you. Our next and final agenda item for the day is departmental number 4. It's Martin County Board of County Commissioners review of the consent agenda expenditure process. It's one that I had asked Mr. Donaldson to present. We've had a consistent public comment in regards to how somehow that the system of the consent agenda and the items that are financial on it are somehow put on there to be secretive or lack transparency. And we feel, those of us that are on this side, that it is not the case, that we're not trying to be have a lack of transparency. And so I just wanted to hopefully give us an opportunity for Mr. Donaldson to present so that everyone can hear it, because if you hear something repeatedly, you might start to believe that it could be true. And I don't feel that it is true. So, Mr. Donaldson, why don't you enlighten us on how the process genuinely works?
Thank you, Commissioners. Again, Don Donaldson, your County Administrator. I'm going to give you a highly abbreviated overview of just one particular piece of the process. We do have a complicated bureaucracy, and the bureaucracy is the term that applies here. But I think it's important to know how your dollar is appropriated and how it's spent. And I'm going to, again, just focus on one area and how it shows up in the consent agenda. And so just highlighting the Board of County Commissioners has an administrative directive policy. It was last updated February 1st of 2023, and it's been in existence for some time. But in there's the definition of consent and what's in our consent agenda, and we have expenditures or commitments of funding which was previously included, identified, and approved in the adopted budget or capital improvement plan, and that meets the threshold for the board approval as identified in the board-approved purchasing manual. There's a number of other bulleted items that qualify for what can go in the consent, but I specifically highlighted this one since it pertains to sort of the expenditure side of things. So I'll come back to this later, but this is an example of back in April 18th of a consent item, and it talks about the warrant list of disbursements, and there's certainly a large number of expenditures that are highlighted in there. And that warrant list is or disbursements that the clerk puts together. It's sort of it's an old term in government finance. A warrant is a written order to pay that instructs a federal, state, or county government treasurer, in this case the Martin County Clerk of Court, to pay the warrant holder on demand or after a specific date. So again, a great bureaucratic term for or an archaic term for about it's about an invoice and getting paid. So so how do you get that? And so first, I'm going to talk about two different processes. One, we'll talk about capital projects first. We talked about the CIP. It came up some today on some of your other items. We have, and again, all of these are approved in your budget in your September hearing. We talk about them preliminarily. In March, we had a preliminary CIP. In July, we'll have a discussion on your operational budget, and maybe some CIP will come up again. And ultimately, you will advertise a proposed budget. And then in September, you'll have several hearings of which you actually adopt the final budget. And within all those adopting resolutions, you will have formally approved the CIP, and you'll approve the expenditures that are expected to be paid or authorized to be spent next fiscal year. In this particular case, we're talking about the September of this past year of 2022, which gave us authorization to spend. So then we go through a bidding and award process, and that bidding and award process, if it's over $1 million, it will come back to you again for approval, just as Christie's item earlier. Now, once we have a contract, whether it was approved by you, in this case twice, or those smaller approvals that you allow your county administrator to execute, you get a purchase order approved by purchasing in OMB with oversight by our county attorney. Then we certainly notice proceed. The contractor is certainly underway, and they submit payments to us for request. It goes through several processes in terms to determine that they actually built what we asked them to, and then we authorize for payment. That authorization payment goes to the clerk, who actually sends out the check. And sometimes this is by check, and sometimes it is by wire transfer. As we transition to a more modern financial department, not everybody has to get a check these days. Some things are wire transferred, and you'll see that in the warrant list. Then it comes back to you as the check register information required by state statutes comes back to you on these consent items showing what you have spent. And they're detailed. We also have detailed check information that was contained in that warrant list that's on the county's website. So this is just an example of a CIP sheet that was approved in the past, Salerno Road resurfacing. This happened to show up in this check register or this warrant list back in April, your last agenda meeting that I took as an example. And here you can see that the vendor was FG Construction LLC, and they had payments that over time had accumulated to $441,000 that were directly related to this project that you approved for construction totaling over $1.6 million. I don't expect you to read this, but the point was just that the CIP sheet, which was probably attached to the original contract and to the award, again shows up in this check register. I'm also going to talk about now is your operating budget. So the county's budget is almost $560 million, of which 38% includes operating and capital. So that's over $210 million. So you're on any given week or month, you're going to be spending over $10 million just on your normal projects that you've approved. And of course, in our operations, that includes everything from electricity to cleaning supplies, et cetera, which again, once you've approved the budget and our line items have different operational components, we would bid that out. Oftentimes, you'll see most of those contracts are bid out where you combine lots of departments. So cleaning supplies, instead of just buying each purchase or each department, we aggregate them into one large purchase, and where the various departments utilize that. So just as an example, I'll pick on Sean Donahue because he's new, and our our building general services. Anyway, here there's and again, I don't expect you to read it, but there's a line item in here that shows building repair and maintenance, and it's at, you approved a $532,000 budget. And here's an example where, obviously, Train, and we use them for energy and other services and repairs, that they had $15,000 worth of checks paid to them. Again, they went through that whole procurement process. And it, too, showed up, both of these are examples that actually showed up on this consent item of April 18th. And this would have been a part of the backup of that consent item, which shows the clerk of court's warrant list. And within there, it has just certainly large aggregate numbers of check disbursements for payroll for different vendors. And if you go to the Clerk Center, you can ultimately find all of the individual disbursements, which originally wind their way back, all the way back to that September hearing where you approved the overall budget. And then by virtue of your adopted policies and procedures, most of those come to you for the awards of contracts. And then we follow up with those partial payment approvals, which get done, and then ultimately they find up back being in the agenda again at the very end of their life as a warrant list under the duties of the clerk. So the various, just to understand, there are lots of checks and balances along the way. Some most important are our contracts, which our legal team works with. Our procurement officers, Christy Brotherton has a really critical role in that, and of course Jennifer Manning in the budget office, ensuring that we are spending out of the line items that you gave us the approval to do. And then finally, the clerk is our another backstop to make sure they also do a comparative analysis that, are you spending these out of the right funds? Did you actually get the approvals for this? And then ultimately, we have a final check, which is an audit that we get done every year, and multiple audits, whether it's the clerk's audit or DOT audit, all these various people to kind of come in and look over our shoulders to see how money is being spent. So, again, this was highly abbreviated. Anywhere along the way, I could have drilled down into an innumerable number of policies, or how that example, those two projects, what the actual bid documents looked like, how many times you actually came to approve it. But I think ultimately the story is that the dollar that gets appropriated gets touched many times and goes through a whole bunch of iterative procedures and approvals before it actually winds up being spent into a vendor's hand and then finally gets recorded in this warrant list. With that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I think, obviously, the five of us understand how the process works, but it was a good exercise for our staff to for our public to hear, so that if, just because somebody says that the process is somehow corrupted or flawed, is not genuinely the case. And from my perspective, the most important information you gave is that if someone is genuinely interested in really doing that drill down, Taxpayers Association or anybody else, that they would have the opportunity to find that information available to them on our website. Commissioner Smith.
And I guess I would tag on to what your thoughts were about the most important thing. I think from my perspective, there are 3 public hearings that this board goes through, both CIP, public hearing, and then 2 adoption hearings for the budget, one in September and one in October, right?
They were both in September.
They're both in September? I thought one in September, early October. Anyway, you're right, because October 1 it takes effect. But there are 3 public hearings with this board that we approve all of the money that gets spent. And all that process that you just walked us through was a step-by-step of what happens after those funds are approved by the board that go into a plan that over the course of the year, yes, we probably spend $10 million a week in the course of that entire budget.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments for Mr. Donaldson? Seeing none, it is the end of our agenda. I'll take 505 public comment. Seeing that there's no one here, there won't be public comment. So we'll go to commissioner comments, and we will start with you, Commissioner Smith.
Did we need to do anything with this proxy thing today?
When we get to
gonna ask.
Mrs. Woods, we'll discuss that. Thank you. Anything further?
No, I'm also.
Commissioner Heatherington?
I'm all set, thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Jenkins?
I'm good, thank you.
Commissioner. I wanted to bring up the conversation that two of our public speakers this morning had mentioned about the residency policy for, in this particular case, the golf course. I had made some comments. And from Mr. Stokas, I did receive an email that had a departmental policy that was dated April 14th, 2023, establish proof of residency, and then it says the policy, Martin County Parks and Recreation Department provides services that may include discounted opportunities, programs, and membership for Martin County residents. When allowed, no other discounts can be combined. Minors must be accompanied by a legal guardian and provide the same documentation stated below. Facility managers will validate residency based on the requirements below. Each Martin County resident must provide at least one of the following below: a Florida State issued driver's license or government-issued ID that displays the resident's full name and current Martin County address, or county staff to validate property tax bill or property appraiser's website on the property appraiser's website using a valid ID, declaration of a domicile which can be obtained from the Martin County Clerk of Court, current notarized lease or rental agreement, current Martin County voter registration card, current vehicle registration. So I think this does explain that there are several opportunities or options that are available to residents for the ability of proving that they live here. So that being said, I appreciate this from you, Mr. Stokas, and from Mr. Abate and his team. I think then the issue is not so much that we have a limited issue, but that the residents that are going here don't realize that they can show other documentation to prove it. So that being said, and Mr. Abate, I tried to reach out to him. He's out of the office. He has responded to me that that is the case. Let me see if there's any updates. Florida State driver's license issued or government-issued ID that displays the resident's full name and current thing. And then he lists the same things that we discussed. So I appreciate that. I think we've, if in this case, two residents come all the way to our meeting to discuss that, it was obviously important to them. And it's a proactive approach that our staff worked on it, and hopefully they will know from watching this, or our golf course personnel will know to broaden the scope of what they can and cannot see. We're heading to you, Ms. Woods. Mr. Donaldson.
Just one thing, during the week of May 21st to 27th is a celebration of National Public Works Week. And I just want to thank our public works professionals, engineers, managers, employees, and having come from there, just want to make sure, I know we won't have another meeting, to recognize Public Works Professional Week of May 21st through 27th.
Fantastic. Will there be a party?
Absolutely.
Okay. Ms. Woods, you had something that you needed to discuss with us.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Sarah Woods, County Attorney. I've provided each of you with copies of proposed proxies, which we would use at the annual landowners meeting for the Palomar Water Control District. Inconsistent with board policy, we have had this is in order to give our Martin County Board of County Commissioners representative, Commissioner Hurd, the ability to vote both the pieces of property that we own solely as the county, as well as those that we own with the South Florida Water Management District at the annual meeting. And so with that, I ask for permission to execute these proxies and to file them with the Palomar Water Control District for the, I believe it's June 1st landowners meeting.
Move to approve. Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Jenkins, seconded by Commissioner Smith, to approve the request that was made by our attorney, Mrs. Woods. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Now, at that point, I would also like to say that we will not be having an additional meeting for the month of May. We discussed it and voted at our last meeting that it would not be necessary, as well as the fact that that Tuesday immediately follows the Memorial Day Monday holiday. So our next commission meeting will be Tuesday, June 6th. With that, I wish everyone, including mine, a happy Mother's Day. And to your son for graduating high school, and all those that are graduating high school. I know that project graduation is being handled at each of the 3 high schools individually. Please be careful during the graduation nights that there are people, young people that are out on the roads. Please be careful. And with that, we will see you on June 6th. Thank you.